Dear finance professionals and students, welcome to podcast of FCA Deepak Rao, a practicing chartered accountant. Weekly digest for week 4 of September 2024. The government is considering using data from quick commerce platforms like Zepto, Blinkit, Instamart and Big Basket to understand consumption patterns and economic activity. Quick commerce now accounts for 5 to 6% of household grocery spending and is growing rapidly. The Ministry of Statistics plans to revise the base year for national accounts to 22-23 or 23-24. The Indian e-commerce market grew 18 to 20% by value in the first 6 months of this year, with grocery sales surging over 38%, driven largely by a sharp uptick in quick commerce. A Surat-based jewel firm operating from a 20 by 22 feet commercial office in a special economic zone has come under the radar of Enforcement Directorate for allegedly making illegal outward remittances to the tune of over Rs 4,000 crore. The firm is accused of transferring forex to foreign shores under the guise of imports from a special economic zone and using shell entities in Hong Kong. The complaint has been filed against Sharnam Jewels Limited, LLP, its partners and others. Acting under FEMA, the ED has also seized properties in the form of plots, flats and bank balances worth Rs 30 crore. Alternative investment funds or AIFs, privately pooled and regulated investment vehicles, have emerged as a dominant force in the Indian real estate sector by playing a crucial role in reshaping the investment landscape by injecting much needed capital into key segments of the market. With rising demand for both residential and commercial spaces, as well as an increasing focus on logistics due to the growth of e-commerce, these funds are capitalizing on a variety of opportunities. Since January 2021, several real estate-focused AIFs have announced plans to raise over $8.2 billion targeting residential, commercial, and logistics assets. These funds have already secured more than $5.3 billion. Software services provider for small businesses, Tally Solutions, is expanding its product suite, building an integrated accounting to financial reconciliation and credit facilitation offering. The Bengaluru-based company, founded in 1986, said it is in expansion and rediscovery mode as it prepares to serve the new generation of small businesses through connected services. They are working with banks to make business banking and reconciliation a lot easier with Tally. With the small business community in the country getting digitized, Tally Solutions found an opportunity to bring more services onto its platform. The company had applied for a small finance bank license, but the application got rejected by the Reserve Bank of India in June. Now, it intends to focus on building a distribution play on financial services. The company launched its account aggregator services in October last year after getting the NBFC account aggregator license for Tally Edge, its subsidiary. Apple has increased its revenue lead over Samsung in India's mobile phone market, despite shipping fewer devices. This growth is driven by higher average selling prices and aggressive market expansion. In the first half of 2024, Apple shipped 4.8 million units for $4.56 billion in revenue, while Samsung shipped 9.8 million units for $3.43 billion. Mahindra & Mahindra, holding a 51% share in India's pickup truck market, plans to introduce its Vero range in Southeast Asia and expand in South Africa. Initially focusing on the domestic market, the Vero targets intracity applications and competes with Tata Motors Intra and Ashok Leyland's Dost models. Ayyappan, our former chief executive of Flipkart-owned Cleartrip, is set to launch new quick commerce retail venture and is in talks with venture capital firms Axel and RTP Global for a sizable seed funding. The venture is likely to focus on delivering a select range of premium products within 20 to 30 minutes and will also have an offline retail presence, hence the need for larger than usual seed funding. It will cover various retail categories including FMCG, health and fitness, and fashion, and offer both international and local brands. Venture fund Lightspeed, through its growth fund, is set to lead a $50 to $60 million deal with Cure.ai, which provides artificial intelligence-based decision support tools for diagnostic images. This would be the third major deal from Lightspeed from its growth fund after having invested in quick commerce firm Zepto and edtech company Physicswala. Nomura, Japan's largest investment bank and broking firm, has jumped into the race to acquire homegrown investment bank Avendus, a KKR portfolio company, switching from advisor on the deal to interested party. The Avendus sale process has already seen keen interest from Japanese financial conglomerate Mizuho, perceived as the most aggressive contender, and US buyout fund Carlyle. Based on consultations with Market Infrastructure Institutions or MIIs and recommendations of the Technical Advisory Committee, SEBI has notified modifications in the guidelines for the Business Continuity Plan and Disaster Recovery of Market Infrastructure Institutions. In addition to the disaster recovery site, all stock exchanges, clearing corporations, and depositories must also have a near site to ensure zero data loss. The promoters and investors in Aragon Life Sciences, formerly GVK Bio, the Goldman Sachs-backed contract research organization, plans to dilute about 10% stake at a valuation of Rs 10,000 to Rs 12,000 crore or up to $1.5 billion in a pre-IPO round. Investors including Quadria Capital and Denmark-based pharmaceutical major Novo Nordisk are among those interested in minority stake and engaged in early discussions. In February, Novo Holdings, the holding company of Novo Nordisk, acquired US-based publicly listed contract development and manufacturing organization Catalent for $16.5 billion. The company provides drug discovery and development services to pharmaceutical, agrochemical, and biotech firms. Its end-to-end and integrated services run across the value chain from drug discovery to commercial manufacturing. Bharti Airtel, India's second largest telecom operator, plans to award $1 billion worth of orders to Ericsson, Nokia, and Samsung for 4G gear over the next 3 years. This move aims to accelerate the shift of feature phone users to smartphones and boost user revenue. The contracts will help deepen Airtel's 4G coverage across India. The centre is set to introduce a creditor-led insolvency resolution mechanism to expedite recoveries and reduce the burden on bankruptcy courts. This new framework will allow out-of-court arrangements for big loan defaults with a shorter resolution deadline of 150 days. The National Company Law Tribunal's role will be limited to approving the plan agreed upon by creditors and debtors. The US Federal Reserve is expected to cut interest rates for the first time in over 4 years, likely impacting global financial markets. The decision comes as inflation eases and the labor market cools. Analysts are divided on whether the cut will be a quarter or half percentage point. In a recent address at an event, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman reaffirmed that the government will not be reducing tax rates under the old tax regime. This statement comes in response to ongoing calls from taxpayers for similar rate reductions in both the old and new tax regimes. Sitharaman was very clear that the taxpayers are not being compelled to opt for this new regime from the previous one. She said, highlighting that over 78% of taxpayers have already opted for the new regime. This new system was introduced to simplify direct taxation and ease compliance for individuals. As per Regulation 13 Subsection 1 of SEBI FVCI Regulations 2000, foreign venture capital investors or FVCIs must submit quarterly reports to SEBI in the format specified with respect to their venture capital activity as FVCI. Now, the SEBI has revised the report's format. FVCIs must submit the quarterly report even if no investment is made during the quarter. Further, the report for the quarter ending September 30th, 2024 and December 31st, 2024 must be submitted via email in an Excel file by November 15th, 2024 and Jan 15th, 2025. From the quarter ending March 31st, 2025 onwards, FVCIs must submit quarterly report in the revised format on the SEBI intermediary portal. The report must be submitted within 15 calendar days from the end of each quarter. The Federal Reserve has announced a half-point rate cut before the end of this year and an additional percentage point cut in 2025. This decision will lower borrowing costs for consumers and businesses. The Fed is confident that inflation is moving towards its 2% target, with balanced risks to employment and inflation goals. This interest rate cut from the Federal Reserve has influenced global central banks, including those in Europe and emerging markets. This move aims to ease pressure on exchange rates and provide space for recalibrating their own rate settings. The European Central Bank may consider further cuts, while emerging markets adjust their policies accordingly. Banks are working on introducing stringent background checks on customers looking to open accounts via digital banking channels. This is a practice usually followed by lenders while opening credit accounts, but is now being replicated for deposit accounts too. This comes at a time when banks are trying to weed out mule accounts which receive funds from illegal sources or through fraudulent transactions from their systems. Tata Sons Chairman N. Chandrasekaran anticipates Tata Electronics, Air India, and Tata Digital to become top businesses within 3 years. The group's revenue grew by 13% in financial year 24, with profits surging over 50%. Investments are projected to exceed $120 billion in 5 years, focusing on electronics, digital services, and battery manufacturing. Maruti Suzuki India is set to launch its first electric vehicle, the Concept EVX SUV, in January 2025. The company plans to establish around 25,000 EV charging points and collaborate with oil marketing and energy companies to build a robust charging ecosystem. This initiative aims to address the challenges of EV adoption in India. The Jubilant Bhartiya Group promoters are leading the race to acquire a significant minority stake in Coca-Cola's India bottling arm, Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages. They have signed an exclusivity agreement with Coca-Cola to negotiate the purchase of Rs 10,800 to Rs 12,000 crore. This move is part of Coca-Cola's strategy to adopt an asset-light model and precedes a planned listing of HCCB. The Adani Group has emerged as a frontrunner in the race to acquire the promoter's 46.64% stake in ITD Cementation India to bolster its in-house civil engineering capabilities. At current market value, a successful deal would be pegged at $700 million, inclusive of a fully subscribed open offer that will follow a promoter stake purchase. Reliance Consumer Products is intensifying competition in the Indian soft drinks market by expanding its Campa range at half the price of Coca-Cola and PepsiCo brands. This move has promoted Coca-Cola and PepsiCo to increase promotions, though they have not yet reduced prices. The festive season could see further developments in this cola price war. Foxconn-backed Sharp is seeking an Indian partner to establish a display fabrication facility under the India Semiconductor Mission. The Japanese company aims to leverage its expertise in large displays and collaborate with a strong local player. This venture could help Sharp rejuvenate its business and meet the growing demand for larger screens in India. In accordance with the latest circular from the Income Tax Department, it has raised the minimum threshold for filing appeals to the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal or ITAT and the High Courts and Supreme Court. According to the latest circular of CBDT, the Tax Department is allowed to file appeals if the disputed tax demand is more than Rs 60 lakh for ITAT, Rs 2 crore for the High Court, and Rs 5 crore for the Supreme Court. This was done in a bid to decrease the number of lawsuits and come up with a mechanism that would see tax litigations of relatively small amounts being handled at lower tiers. ITAT had been fixed at Rs 50 lakh, Rs 1 crore for the High Courts and Rs 2 crore for the Supreme Court in the year 2019. The increase in limits shows the government's plan to relieve the judicial bodies and make the process of tax dispute resolution much lighter. India may impose additional tariffs worth $1.1 billion on EU products in response to the bloc's extended safeguard duties on steel imports. The list of items, primarily steel products, is being finalized. This issue will be discussed in the upcoming bilateral free trade talks with the EU next week. India's top 10 private banks have added 295,000 professionals over the past 4 years, with a notable increase in financial year 24. HDFC Bank led the hiring surge, followed by Kotak Mahindra and ICICI Bank. The expansion of branch networks and growth in technology and risk management roles drove this hiring trend. Vodafone Idea has scheduled a meeting with investors and analysts on September 23rd to discuss recent events. This follows the Supreme Court's rejection of pleas by telecom companies, including Vodafone Idea, regarding adjusted gross revenue or AGR dues. The ruling is a significant setback for Vodafone Idea, which owes substantial amounts to the government. Motel 6, the budget hotel chain that has lined US highways for decades, will be sold to Oyo, an Indian-based hotel operator. Blackstone, the private equity giant and the owner of Motel 6's parent company, said the transaction would be an all-cash deal for $525 million. The deal is expected to close before the end of the year and would include the chain's offshoot hotel brand Studio 6. The Indian government has initiated a comprehensive review of the Integrated Goods and Service Tax settlement mechanism following complaints from several state governments about revenue shortfalls. States like Tamil Nadu and Kerala have raised concerns that they are not receiving their due share of IGST, leading to significant revenue losses. This podcast is sponsored by Sound of CA. We share because we care. Vande Mataram, Jai Hind.